Today, the centrality of education in people's life is getting increased recognition. Education is essential for empowering individuals, but it's also essential for social development. It is also foundation for human development and therefore indispensable for realizing any development goal. The post-2015 agenda already attached quite a lot of importance on discussing educational dimensions, and the World Education Forum organized by UNESCO especially elaborated the importance of education for 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. I think one of the particular aspects the post in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda relates to access to justice by all and creating an environment for peace. This again depends on education and promoting a culture of peace. What is most important, therefore, is that education in a broad sense should address the issues of creating institutions for safeguarding and promoting justice and try to promote a culture of lawfulness so that rule of law and values of democracy became ingrained in the children and youth when they receive education. And I think this is of especial importance in the implementation of 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. This is recognized very much by Doha Declaration, which underlines the need for an integrated approach in Sustainable Development Agenda for the purpose of preventing crimes and for the purpose of fostering criminal justice. Rule of law and democracy, these are the fundamental concepts which have been reflected in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, and an instrument of special importance is the United Nations General Assembly Declaration on Rule of Law of September 2012, which relates to development issues and the importance of rule of law for creating societies which are just, inclusive, and respectful of human rights. And therefore, the system of education should be such that it fosters those values through curriculum content, through the teacher training, and particularly educational material. I think what we need to promote is the concept of education for democracy, especially at basic education level, so that we can then try to respect the objectives of 2030 education agenda, that is goal number 4, in order to ensure good quality secondary education for all, along with skills development and lifelong learning. And in this process, the concepts of rule of law will enable us to create societies which would not be prone to violence, conflicts and crimes as we see in today's world. Education is a fundamental right, and as part of economic, social and cultural rights, it is a right which is justiciable in the sense that in case of violation of this right, it should be possible to take up the issues in the court of law and other instances. In other words, the right to education, like other human rights, is a justiciable right. For this, it is imperative to create institutions of justice which will enable full respect for human rights, but also for democratic principles and rule of law. In my report to the Human Rights Council on justiciability of right to education, an important consideration relates to considering basic education as an entry point, because even if we put in place mechanisms of justice and institutions which safeguard democracy, fundamental principles and fundamental principles of rule of law, still there is need for creating greater awareness. And what is important is therefore to empower youth in terms of values through education. For example, to ensure that education does not serve only the materialistic pursuit of purposes, but education fosters basically human values. It is directed to its human right mission, so that youth and adults would be empowered, and that way they will be able to defend the cause of democracy and rule of law and of justice. And this, I think, is of paramount importance in giving effect to the sustainable development agenda.